Fresh?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I am marvelous.
Fantastic.
Thanks for sitting down doing this, man.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. You've been killing the game, man. Killing the game. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be part of you. I'm excited to get questioned by the vaping trucker.
All right. Well, so outside of vaping, what do you like to do?
I'm an avid bicycler. I ride I ride bicycle to and from work every day. I go out for long rides on the weekends, and I love cats. That's about the extent of my hobbies. I'm not much of a gamer anymore. Used to game quite a bit. I used to go and see every movie that was up for an Oscar every year. I would make a point of finding it somewhere and going and seeing it while I was in the theaters, but I haven't done that in a couple of years. That was kind of a hobby of mine, but for the most part, man, it's just bicycle, and then it seems like I've always got something going on YouTube. So, keep myself busy. That's a big thing for me, is I like to keep busy.
Oh, absolutely. How long did you smoke?
I smoked it was almost exactly 20 years.
Wow.
Almost exactly 20 years. Because I picked up smoking when I was a Boy Scout, when I was 14, and then I started, and that was just off and on. And then I started pretty regular when I was about 16. And that was when I started going and buying my own packs, because I had a job and I could do it.
Right.
And then it was so right about when I turned 34 is when I made the switch. That was 6-7 years ago at this point. I don't even remember.
What made you decide to change to vaping?
So I'm one of those accidental quitters. You hear about the accidental quitters. They just kind of stumbled into vaping. That's me. My buddy Sean, who was on the Guardians Foundation show, he had started vaping, and I just kind of smirked at him, because I had gotten cigalikes and things like that in the past, and I just used them, get nicotine in a bar while I was out drinking. But I never really used them for anything else, except for when the weather was crap. So he got me a kit, it was like in November, and it wound up just kind of sitting on my shelf, and I would grab it occasionally. I took it on trips so I could vape on trips, things like that. But when I got to, it was right around June-ish, May or June. I'm a government employee, so it was several years back, but they furloughed a lot of the government employees, and I was one of those employees. And so I went from being a full-time employee to being a part-time employee, and I was losing at least one day a week worth of pay, and that adds up quick. And I thought I had plenty of money saved up, and it turned out I was wrong. I was wrong about that. So I just started cutting expenses from my life anywhere I could find it. I was already kind of a cheapskate, so it was just one of those things. I looked at smoking. I was like, all right, how can I quit? And I was driving by a vape shop, and I looked over and I saw it said 4 packs, like $15. That's what the equivalent of 1 bottle of e-liquid is. And I was like, well, I can do that. That's 4 packs for $15. I'm spending like $75 a carton at this point here in Washington. I was like, I can totally do that. So I pulled into this vape shop. I broke out my little vaporizer that my buddy had given me. It was just a little ego pen. It was about this big. Had like a little, I think it was a CE2. It was a CE2 or a CE3 on it. And I went in and I tried every single e-liquid, pretty much every single e-liquid they had in the place. They had little samplers and boxes. I just went through everything, and I made a list of like 10 that I really liked. And I went with a coffee e-liquid. It tasted like, to me at the time, it tasted exactly like a black cup of coffee. And that's what got me, because at the time I was drinking coffee by the pot. I don't even drink caffeine anymore, but that was what got me. It was just that coffee flavor, and it tasted like a black cup of coffee. So I figured I could taste that all day, since I was already tasting that all day. And so I just sat there and vaped. And so, yeah, I quit because money. Yeah, it took me 3 days to quit cigarettes. And on that third day, that last cigarette tasted so bad. I was just couldn't figure out what I'd been doing to myself all these years, and it just didn't make sense anymore. And I just came inside and sat in my chair and grabbed my vape and just sat there and vaped away with my cat. So now the rest has been history.
Right. How has vaping changed your life? I mean, any health benefits that you've noticed since you like to bicycle? And
Yeah. Yeah, it was like, I think it was about a month and a half later, I went and did a half marathon because I was feeling so good. And it was an awful mistake. It was a horrible idea, but I did it. And then I took up bicycling right around that time. There was a couple people at work that were pretty big into bicycling, and I already had a couple bicycles that weren't getting used. So I figured, why not? I, took them out and started riding to work, or I would ride home from work. I would usually just do one trip or the other and ride the bus the other way. And just once again, saving money because the government pays for transit passes.
right.
So once again, I kind of inadvertently stumbled into bicycling, and I just realized how much I enjoyed being out there on my bicycle. And now I ride, try and ride a couple hours every day. But yeah, I was when I first made that switch, I was over to vaping. I was about 50 pounds heavier than I am now. Now everybody keeps telling me how skinny I'm getting, but I'm like, finally, like, do you know how fat I let myself get? Oh man, it was awful. But took me like 6 years to lose 50 pounds, but it's all been good weight loss. So it's not just going to come flooding back if I don't ride my bicycle for a couple days. So that's one of those big things. Just being able to breathe easier. Just going, all the cardio came back. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Absolutely. For those people who don't know, you dabble just a little bit in DIY.
Just a smidge. Here, I can do that. Just a smidge. Then I can. It goes all the way up to the top. There's flavors all the way. That's just one side. That's just one side. The other side looks pretty close to the same.
What got you started mixing?
Same guy who kept my channel going early. When I first started my channel, I just did it for an Australian gal named Remy Johnson, just to give her some advice as far as dripping, because she wanted to get into dripping. So I started that for her. Basically, I just made a video for her because I really liked what she was doing on her channel, and she was getting really crap advice. And so this guy named Addy Tooney jumped on my channel pretty early, and he was just really encouraging. And one day he sent me an email. He's like, "Hey man, I've got this K-Fun that I've been modding out. Would you mind if I sent you one so you could check it out?" I'm like, "Dude, you're gonna send me like a K-Fun? Like that's pretty nuts. Like K-Funs back then were like 140, 180 bucks, right. Something like that." He's like, no, don't worry, it's just a clone. But I did a lot of work to it, and I'd really like it if you checked it out. I'll put some of my e-liquid in there. I was like, all right, your e-liquid? What do you mean, man? He's like, oh, I make my own e-liquid. I'll just put some of that in there. And he sent it to me. And so I get this K-Fun in the mail. It's just gorgeous. Just gorgeous. Anybody who's never seen an Addy Tooney K-Fun. I got one of the very first ones, so I consider myself pretty lucky. But yeah, so I've got this K-Fun, and it's filled with this e-liquid. And I'm really hesitant because, e-liquid at the time, it was like 30 bucks, and I start looking into it a little bit. I'm like, okay, so you can do this. The process seems like it could be a little dirty. I don't know what this guy's doing. I don't know this guy all that well, except for he's just commenting on my YouTube videos. This crazy Addy Tooney guy somewhere over in New York. So I was legitimately worried, Mike, that there was going to be some sort of illicit drug in that. Like the dude was sending me meth or PCP or something like this in this vape. And I I legitimately thought that, and I let it sit there for a couple days, and he would email me like, "Hey, dude, I know you got the K-Fun. I saw in the tracking. Did you like the liquid?" And I'm like, "Oh, dude, I haven't had time to try it. I'm so sorry. I'm just sitting there staring at this K-Fun on my desk. Like, what am I gonna do?" So finally, one day I just break down. I'm like, "All right, he seems like a really good dude. I don't think he's gonna slip me any angel dust in my vape. Let's just vape this and try it." And so I vaped this e-liquid, and the first rip off of it was the best damn e-liquid I had ever had. And it was anybody that's looking for the e-liquid, it's called Addie's Custard. It's over on the e-liquid-recipes site. It's still one of the best e-liquids I've ever tried to this day. So I vaped that, and I pretty quickly realized that K-Fun did not hold all that much of that e-liquid.
Right.
So I had done a little research on DIY at that point, just because I was curious. This guy said he's making his homemade e-liquid, and so I asked him for the recipe, not actually expecting for him to send his recipe to me. And he just sent it to me, and that's kind of where the sharing and DIY in my heart kind of comes from, because Addy Tooney makes some of the best liquids on the planet. He doesn't have to share with anybody, but he shares with everybody. Right. So I try and always keep that in mind when I'm going through this stuff. But that's how I got started on DIY, was just Addy Tooney sending me this homemade e-liquid, and it was so good, and I wanted to make more of it. And I couldn't do it the first couple times, and I asked him for some more advice, and he gave me more advice, and just kept rolling from there. And that's where my friendship with Addy Tooney started too. So.
Right. How many concentrates do you have, roughly? You got a guess?
If I had to guess, enough to make my shelves bow. The last time I counted, I was at like 1,200, and that was 6 months ago, and I've gotten a bunch since then. So if I had to take a wild guess, I'm probably sitting somewhere around 1,500.
Right. I'm assuming that you don't necessarily single flavor test everything anymore. You got a process for doing that?
If it's a new flavor from like Wonder Flavors or Flavora, or someone specifically asks me to try their flavors, then I'll single flavor test it. Otherwise, I will quite frankly just make a recipe that sounds good based on what the flavor is supposed to be, using ingredients that I already know, and then just using that flavor. I attempt to use it as a main note. Some flavors aren't really suited for a main note, but I will give that a try first. And if that doesn't work, then I'll try and move it back to like a back note. If that still doesn't work, then I don't like that flavor. So that's generally what I do. You'll see me do it a lot of times on a Saturday. You'll hear me say, "Well, I just got this and I might as well try it." And so that's a lot of times I'll do that like on like one of the recipes for a Saturday show, just to give it a shot. But yeah, I really don't do all that much single flavor testing unless it's someone who specifically asked me to try their flavor.
Somebody left me a question to ask you, and they meant it as a joke, okay. But it led me to a question that I'm curious about. The initial question was, why don't you just build you some shelves already so you can better organize your flavors? And then my question would be, how do you organize your flavors?
So my flavors are organized very chaotically. So it's like I get the question, but there is a method to my madness. So I have right now. I'm probably moving soon, but right now so that'll change everything. But right now my flavors are broken into fruit, bakery and cream, and then weird stuff. And then over on the other side, I've got all of Flavora and all of Wonder flavors, and then all the vape trains I've just got those separate because that's just kind of the way it worked out. Like all these flavors were around previously before I started getting full lines in. But that was how I initially organized it. And it made sense when you're, sitting at like 500 flavors, it's not all that many to dig through. When you're sitting at 1,500 flavors, the system doesn't make as much sense. But I've got so many flavors at this point that just the thought of reorganizing is just so daunting. That's like I've got shelves, I've got all sorts of stuff to redo them, but it would take me an entire weekend, and I'm not sure I want to spend an entire weekend organizing flavors.
Right. I wouldn't, and I don't have near that many. I've got maybe 500 in the truck with me. Somewhere
Yeah, and
500.
like at 500, it was like tink, tink, tink. Okay, there it is. But 1500, sometimes it can turn into like 20 minutes of me digging through my flavors. Like, where the hell is my flavor art Florida key lime? So,
Right, and I think I've heard you say before, even when you did flavor test, you don't like keep your notes anywhere; they're all in your head.
a lot of it's in my head. I do make some notes on computer, especially for stuff that people are asking me to try. But for the most part, I just remember everything. As far as flavors go, like flavors make sense to me, so they stick in my brain pretty easily.
Right.
But a lot of time, it's very rare that I don't remember what a flavor does. If I don't remember specifically off the top of my head, the chances are either I've got it and I haven't tried it, or I never bothered picking it up. So,
Okay. Let's test this out a little bit. What about Flavor West Circus Peanut?
I don't have Flavor West Circus Peanut. Never have.
Don't have it. Haven't had it. All right.
Yeah. I imagine it'd be kind of gross.
Who makes cake batter dip?
Cake batter dip is Flavor West.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep.
You know anything about that one?
Yeah, Flavor West cake batter dip is so there's the easiest thing to do is try and compare it to Capella's. Capella's is really rich. It's very distinctive in vapes. Like if you put a little bit in, and it's a flavor you can only use it between like 1.25%. You get that uncooked center of a cake or actual like cake batter type flavor. Cake batter dip is it's overly sweet. It's kind of frou-frou. And it would be something like you had like cake pops. Do you know what the cake pops are? Yeah, like a cake pop. So you'd have your cake pop sitting on a stick, and you would dip it into cake batter dip. It's not real cake batter. That's the best way I can describe it. Is it's kind of like a vague vanilla, almost cake batter, but it's not cake batter. And it's overly sweet, and I don't like it much. I don't like the cake batter dip nearly as much as I like the cake batter. I like cupcake batter by Flavor better than I like that. So Flavor West cake batter. It's certainly. I mean, I use it when someone else's recipe calls for it. I think the only reason I got it was who did that recipe? Somebody did a recipe that was just a birthday cake, and they used the Flavor West cake batter dip, and it gets close to doing the same job that the Capella's does, but it's not nearly as good. So,
gotcha.
Any other flavors we could quiz me on?
Oh, I'm sure there are. I just tried to pick something that I don't see people use a lot.
There's a reason people don't use that flavor all that much, because there's way better flavors out there. The cupcake batter and the cake batter by Capella's are both better, and the cupcake batter actually works better as a cake batter dip anyway.
Right. Let's go here then. What's your favorite concentrate at the moment?
My favorite concentrate at the moment, probably a tie between Jungle Flavor Sweet Strawberry and Vape Train Yogurt Drink. That Jungle Flavor Sweet Strawberry, it's just like a strawberry topping for a sundae. It's kind of like that. That's what I get out of it. Kind of that strawberry syrup type flavor. It's really, really nice. And then yogurt drinks just that wonderful lemon with a hint of yogurt and some cream. So good. You can just vape that stuff by itself at like 6%. It's wonderful.
Right. Now, I know other people can do this too, but you have a uncanny knack for just somebody naming something and you can automatically just come up with a recipe that'll get them close.
Yeah.
For instance, a caramel apple sundae.
Caramel apple sundae. So caramel apple sundae, I would do 6% liquid barn vanilla ice cream. I would probably add like 0.5% of Flavora cream, and then I would do probably 0.5% of the Thai apple by Wonder Flavors. That's a Wonder Flavors super concentrate, and then 1.5% of Flavora apple filling, and then I would do probably 2% salted caramel by Flavor West, and probably 0.5% of butterscotch ripple, and that would just help the ice cream a little bit. That'd be a really nice, tasty vape. It would take probably about 5 days or so to steep out.
If somebody was trying to reach a point where they could do that, what advice would you have for them? Like how do you get to that point?
Mix yourself crazy for about 5 years, and then it'll start all kicking in. Just be familiar with your flavors, especially when you're first starting off. You need to single flavor test everything. You need to single flavor test all your stuff. Once you become familiar with the basics of the things that you're using, then it becomes easier. You know, if you know you like using 1.5% of this with 6% of this, then it gets a lot easier once you're familiar with all of your flavors. So single flavor testing is super important when you're first getting going. Just being familiar with your flavors and getting crazy with your mix. Like, I think that I always tell people the big turning point for me was that strawberry milkshake that I did back in the day. And I went so crazy with it that I was just throwing things together that had no business going together, but that got me super familiar with what everything I had at the time was doing. And it made me a whole lot better DIYer. So, you know, just going through and digging through every single flavor you've got, trying to figure out what it's going to do with this. Get yourself lost down the rabbit hole a couple times. Chase a unicorn or two. Those unicorn recipes are great when you nail them, and super frustrating when you don't. And you know, but even a bad mix is a learning experience. So, and never throw anything away for at least a couple months, because you don't know what it's going to do over the course of a couple months.
Where did FRESH03 come from?
It's a play on my last name. My last name is Freshly. I wanted to be FRESH03 because Fresh 1 was taken. So I figured I would be FRESH03 on YouTube, and FRESH3 was also taken. So I decided to be FRESH03. That's it. No, there's nothing fancy about that. Just a play on my last name.
And before I forget, several people wanted me to be sure to tell you that we're very thankful for everything that you do for the community.
I'm thankful that they let me be a part of it. You know, made some of the best friends in this community that I've ever had, and I'll fight tooth and nail to make sure it keeps going. So thank you to everybody that's watching. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you too, Fresh. So speaking of the vape community, what do you think about them? I mean, for the most part, a great group of people, right?
Dirtbags, every one of them. No, they're the vape community is amazing. It's amazing, and just the variety of people that get together. Like, it's fascinating to me, the people that are involved in this community. You know, I've had conversations with you know, felons that are out of jail. I've had conversations with pretty high class, like lawyers. I've had conversations with all sorts of people, just every spectrum of life. And the thing that brings everybody together is the fact that we quit smoking, and this crazy little thing called vaping that helped everybody quit. Like, it's amazing who it brings together. And, you know, there's no borders, no boundaries, anything like that. Nobody's excluded in vaping. And that's a huge thing for me. It's everybody's included. There's no prejudices. I mean, there's prejudices, but, you know, those people usually don't last long in the community. So,
right.
But you know, anybody that wants to be involved in the vape community certainly can, and they will welcome you with open arms. It doesn't matter who you are, and I love that. I absolutely love that about the vape community.
True story. You was in the military, right?
I was in the Army for 9 years.
Was you a medic in the Army?
I was a medic in the Army. Yeah, I was a medic for the first 6 years I was in, and then the last 3 I was a ear, nose, and throat technician. I switched over after a couple of deployments that didn't go as hot as they probably should have, and so didn't want to do the medic thing anymore. I was tired of it, and so I switched over to something that I figured I could get out and make some money with.
Right. Yeah. My dad, of course, he was in during like Vietnam and that, but he was a medic in the Army as well.
Awesome.
So thank you for your service, man.
Thank you. Give your dad a hug from me if he's still around.
No, he's not.
Okay.
About a year and a half ago.
Okay. Well,
not this past December, but the December before.
Salute to your dad then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Medic in Vietnam, that's way rougher than anything that I went through. So. Right.
Yeah. As most people, he didn't like to talk about it.
It's tough to talk about with people that don't understand. The people
Right.
that like the people that you'll talk to are people that are people that are in the military with you. Once you get out, you get into like the VA. A lot of people have a lot of issues that they're unwilling to work through, and eventually you get faced with the fact that you have to work through them. And then they find that talking to groups of fellow veterans who understand, they laugh at the sick jokes that we've got, the morbid humor that's quite frankly a lot of times the only way you get through a lot of the stuff. So, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with like addicts and alcoholics, things like that. You talk to a group of people that understand you, and then it helps you feel that you're not alone. Because a lot of times that's what you feel is a lot of isolation with that type of thing. But yeah, anybody that's out there, any of my fellow vets that are out there, if you're having troubles, go talk to people. I know you don't want to, but it's going to help. It's going to help.
So let's take a deep dive here, Fresh. What did you think as a kid that you would be doing career-wise when you?
I was going to be an engineer. Figured I'd be probably like a machinist of some sort. There's a college in Montana. I grew up originally in Montana, called Montana Tech. I always wanted to go to Montana Tech. Dream's still not dead. I might still wind up there at some point, but I always wanted to go to that school, and it was an engineering school. So I figured I would be an engineer. Not where I wound up, though, at all.
Is there a comic franchise that you wish that they would turn into a movie or a series? Something that
so many. I wish they would do a really good Green Lantern. My 2 favorite comic book heroes are Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, and they did a really shit version of that. It was the wrong guy playing Green Lantern, and it was. They tried to include too much in it, and it just became a mess. And then my other dude is Captain America, and I didn't believe in Chris Evans initially, but after watching the movies, I totally believe in Chris Evans as Captain America. Yeah, there's so many. I guess the one franchise I really wish that they would make a run with would be the Pet Avengers, and it's all the animal sidekicks from the Avengers. It's so funny. It's such a funny series. I wish they would do that. It would probably have to be animated, but it would be wonderful.
Have you chosen personally to avoid certain flavors like that have DAP or cinnamaldehyde or things like that in them?
The only flavors I generally avoid unless something calls for it are alcohol flavors. And that's just because my history with alcohol. I don't care about don't care about cinnamons. I don't care about diacetyl. Diacetyl makes things delicious, and if I feel like something needs cinnamon, I'm gonna add cinnamon to it, and I'm not overly worried about it because quite frankly, I did way more damage to myself over the years smoking with the exact same chemicals that they're warning us about at much higher percentages. So I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about what I'm getting in vaping at all.
Right. Where do you get recipe inspiration from?
Everywhere. Like if I go out and I'll try something and I decide that sounds like it would be a really good idea, I'll do that. Like my mango cinnamon ice cream that's still unreleased to this point. I had a mango cinnamon ice cream that was good. I thought the flavor would work well. I'll go and
That's funny coming from a guy who openly doesn't like mangoes.
I don't like mango flavors. I don't mind mangoes. I don't mind mangoes at all. Like fresh mangoes, absolutely delicious. I'll put mango in a smoothie all day. But mango flavors, for whatever reason, for the most part, they taste like feet to me. I think there's two that I like. Flavor mango, because it doesn't have any of that mustiness that comes across as a foot to me. And Wonder Flavors Island mango doesn't have any of the mustiness at all. It's just that sweet mango flavor. For inspiration, in the morning, a lot of times, if I wind up taking the bus into work because the weather's bad, I'll look on the DIY sites and see new recipes and see what people are up to. And sometimes I'll take inspiration from that. A really nice place to take inspiration from is just go on, search for, because dessert flavors seem to translate a lot better to vape than pretty much anything else. Just go search like the housewife blogs and see like what's the top 10 desserts from bumfuck Indiana.
Right.
See what this lady has put up, and a lot of times you'll see some really, really creative desserts, and then it's a matter of like I'll put the recipe together in ELR or ATF unlisted, and I'll sit there and I'll go through and I'll try and figure out how that would work in my head. I'll try and figure out, how would I make, this deep fried cornbread blueberry compote? How would I do that? Let's do some deep fried pastry dough, maybe a little bit of like flavor avocado for some, kind of an oily sensation in your mouth. Then you figure out your blueberry compote. How are you going with that? Some VSO blueberry, or try and figure that out. And it's just an exercise that you can do, whether you actually make the recipe up or not. Just you go with the flavors you've got. Go through, try and figure out how you would make that recipe work. And I think it's a good exercise to do. Other things I do is I'll go and I'll look at older recipes and kind of rework them with today's flavors. There's recipes that are older recipes that have like 17 things in them, although we still get things with like 17 things in them. Go through and try and cut this and use less flavors. And I'll do that too. I'll go through and try and figure out how I would condense someone's recipe from 17 flavors down to try and get it under 7, and see if I can make it work in my head. And once again, whether I actually mix it up or not, it's just an exercise that keeps my mind like a steel trap, like a very soft steel trap. Like my mind's not all that good, but it'd probably bend on impact. But it's just exercises like that. Just it helps keep my mind creative, because DIY can be kind of redundant. But there's always something new to do. There's always something new coming out. There's always some new profile to chase, and just trying to stay on top of it and keep my mind working.
Right. Is there a flavor that we're missing that you think, if you could call Bryson and say, hey, I need y'all to make this, what would that be?
We need just a straight sticky toffee pudding flavor so that I can stop chasing this. But that's just my own personal one. A good pineapple upside down cake would be really nice. There's some okay pineapple upside down cake flavors out there, but there's nothing that's even remotely close to a legit pineapple or upside down cake. But those are just my own personal chase flavors. What would be good? Something that just tasted like a slice of bread. Like that would be, like if somebody could figure that out for us, just a slice of bread, so that you could go in and you can make peanut butter and jelly sandwich vapes, make your French toast vapes a little easier. You're not trying to chase down real flavors. French toast, don't know how much longer that's going to be around. I think it would open the door for a lot of things. Just a straight piece of bread flavor.
Right. I was reading somewhere too that they were going to discontinue the Real Flavor Super Concentrate line. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, we don't know which ones they're discontinuing. They're discontinuing a lot of them. They got a new guy in. It used to be Walt over at Real Flavors. Really, really cool guy. He would, like, if you message, he was the owner of the company, and if you messaged Real Flavors about, like, you were having an issue with their flavors, he would message you like right back within a couple minutes and tell you this, and this is how you do it. This is how you use a flavor. This is what percentage. Really awesome guy. But there was a bunch of public backlash against him for some unknown reason. Like, he's one of the nicest dudes that was around. And so whoever's in charge of the company now is getting rid of a lot of the flavors. So we don't know what's staying and what's going. The cookie, the Oreo cookie flavor, that cookies and cream of theirs, that better stick around.
Yeah, oh. I like that. I like their strawberry and their strawberry gelato.
That strawberry gelato is really nice.
It is, and their aged bourbon cream.
Yeah, the aged bourbon cream. They finally got their peanut butter cup. The peanut butter cup super concentrate. They finally got that. They finally got that one out. The bread pudding. Did they ever put their cinnamon custard out as a super concentrate? I don't remember them ever doing it, but that was so good. That the BG version, such a pain in the ass to mix with, but man, it was amazing. It was amazing, even right off the shake. But it took like a month to steep out to where you actually got the flavor you were expecting. But yeah, so yeah, as far as I'm aware, that we don't know what they're cutting, but they're cutting quite a few of them. So fingers crossed that French toast peanut butter cup, that aged bourbon cream. There's a bunch I hope stick around. But I get it, like not a lot of people use their flavors. So
right. I know you mix other people's recipes as well. Is there one or two of those that you just keep mixing, like you can't get enough of them?
Jarvis has the latest one that has become an infatuation is Jennifer Jarvis's apple tart with red bits.
Right.
Oh my goodness. That one, I swore a little bit at Jarvis when I first vaped that, just off the shake. It's so amazingly balanced and everything is right there. And as it steeps, it's just getting better. Yeah, so I mix, that's the latest one. I usually get obsessed with someone else's recipe, and I'll mix that for like a couple months, and then I'm like, yeah, I vaped enough of that. But, I do so much mixing during the week that there's not a lot of room for other people's mixes, unfortunately. But if something catches my interest, like when I'm scrolling through ELR or ATF and I see, someone put something out that captivates me, like, okay, yeah, I got to do that. I got to try that. And then when I try it, and if it's good, I'll just keep on mixing it. But yeah, I'm on 3 or 4 mixing shows during the week, and so I've got tons of my own stuff sitting around here.
Well, that was my next question. Is there a recipe of yours that you just keep mixing and keep mixing?
My quick custard keeps, but that all I do is with the quick custards, I just throw whatever fruit on top of it I'm feeling that day.
Right.
So I guess that quick custard kind of counts, but not really. Like, even if I nail something and I'm really, really happy with it, I'll usually only mix like 60 mils of something for myself that I really like, and then it's on the next thing, whatever the next thing is. That's what I'm focused on. And that's just how I've kind of set myself up. It's just, I have to keep mixing the next thing.
Apparently One-on-One has a concentrate line made with MCT oil, which for those who don't know is medium chain triglycerides. I think it's like supposed to be keto. Do you know anything about those?
I hadn't heard anything about those. No. If they're keto flavors, if it's got triglycerides in it, I certainly wouldn't vape it.
Well, and that was the question. What's the difference between those and conventional concentrates?
Triglycerides are, someone will correct me, I'm sure, but triglycerides are a form of a fat, if I'm not mistaken. I should probably Google that real quick. Make sure I'm not running my mouth.
And that's what I did. From what I've read, usually they're made from a base of coconut oil.
Oil right there. Yeah, you're setting yourself up. Yeah, anything that's oil, anything that's going to coat, glycerol and fatty acids. Yeah, so it's got fat and yeah. So I was right. It's got fatty acids in it. Anything that's got fat, fat oils, anything like that, you're on the risk of a lipid pneumonia. We don't want to say that too loud in case someone from the media is around. But yeah, you don't want to mess with something like that. Stick with their all-purpose flavors over there on One-on-One. The all-purpose flavors are generally vape friendly.
Where did you get that cute Yoda hat?
One of my viewers, who actually used to come on the show and hang out with us sometimes. She made it for me. She actually made one for herself, and I think she put it on her Instagram or her Facebook, one of the two. And she, it popped up on my feed, and I was like, "What the? How much for one of those?" And she said, "I'll just make you one." And so, 3 weeks later, it just showed up at my place. She's an awesome gal. She's got her blue belt in Krav Maga. So she's doing well. I don't think she vapes anymore.
This next question, I think somebody might be having an ideal and setting you up for something. So,
I'm sure.
Would you completely shave off your beard for charity?
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. No problem. I'd be curious to see what I look like these days.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. When I got out of the Army, I said I was never going to shave. I said I was in the Army for 9 years, so I wasn't going to be clean shaved for 9 years. That was the deal I made with myself, and I just love the beard, and I just stuck with it. But yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% attached to it. I'm not living that #beard life.
Right.
I enjoy it.
When I got out of the Navy, first thing I did was went and get my ear pierced. Mistake. And I didn't shave for quite a while. Now, I've been barefaced since then, but not in a long time.
But you're a handsome son of a gun, barefaced, aren't you? All baby-faced and stuff.
I look a lot younger, yes.
Yeah. Handsome son gun, I bet.
Now, you'll never guess who asked this question. He would like to know, what does she have to do in order for you to forgive her?
Oh, Emily?
Absolutely.
Emily's never forgiven. Never. Never forgiven. She was making fun of me. She made fun of me live to all the Mix and Vixens. There's no forgiveness for you, Emily. I love Emily to death, but I'll never forgive her. Never forgive her for that.
Okay, we'll go really deep here. What's been the worst phase of your life?
The worst phase of my life?
Yeah.
The worst phase of my life was right when it was right before I quit drinking. That was probably the worst phase of my life. Because I'd gotten out of the Army, and I put on a bunch of weight, and I was just drinking every night, and I was not a good person to be around. I was upset all the time. I was angry all the time. I got angry at my nephew. He doesn't even remember what actually made me quit drinking. But like, I would just yell at people. I would just go off at people at the street, out on the street. You know, I was one of those guys. And then, you know, I made that choice and realized that I was having a really, really bad problem with alcohol. I got super depressed, got suicidal for a little bit, thought about it. Never actually moved forward on any plans, but I certainly thought about it, just because, you know, I was busy alienating everybody in my life. You know, lost some friends and lost some relationships that I wish that I could repair, but they'll never forgive me, Emily. They'll never forgive me for the person that I was then. I wish they could see the person that I am now. And every once in a while I get an opportunity to try and repair a relationship. And, you know, I certainly can't blame people that were around me then for not wanting to be around me now. Like, you know, they don't know they don't know the big changes that I've gone through over the last, 7 years now since I quit. So yeah, they don't know all the big changes I've made in my life. They don't trust the fact that I'll never drink again. Like, I know in my heart it's never happening again. I know the person I was then. I don't want to be that person ever again. And it would just take a drink for me to start slipping back into that person.
Right.
So yeah, that was kind of the darkest phase of my life, because I was super depressed, always angry. Just anybody that wasn't down for what I was doing right then, fuck you, get out of here. And just being an obnoxious prick all the time. So
right.
I don't like thinking about all that. I don't like thinking about it all that much, but you know, it's part of who I was, and that angry person's still inside me. It's, you know, every once in a while it slips out, and I just get upset for no reason at somebody, and luckily I can rein it in pretty quick. I'm like, dude, you're mad for nothing, for absolutely nothing. Stop being stupid. And I'm like, all right, got it. We're back under control. Let's be positive.
Right. Now for somebody that's watching that is already a vapor, that has battled with addictions or alcoholism, how does mixing help with that?
Keeps you busy, gives you Zen time, lets you close out the world, and you can concentrate on what you're doing. Addicts and alcoholics both share the same thing, where our brains get going too fast, and we'll make plans for the world, and when the plans don't go the way that we want, we get upset. We just want to burn everything down. Everything is about us. It's all about an ego trip. So like mixing initially, it was actually building. Like I was and am still a pretty good builder, believe it or not. I just don't do a lot of it on camera anymore. The building was initially like, I would come home and I would have like way too many RDAs, buying up every clone I could find. And I would just build and you know, put them on the shelf, whether I actually use them or not. You know, I would just build, and that would be Zen time. It would be time when I'm not concerned with myself and not upset at the world. And then that, you know, I transitioned over to mixing, and mixing gives me that same thing, where it's just me, what the flavor profile I'm trying to chase, and my brain is focused in one direction, and it's not focused on everything out there that is making me upset. So it's really anything that keeps you busy, quite honestly. It could have been anything. When I quit drinking, that got my attention. But when I quit drinking, and then went through that furlough, and I was upset because I wasn't making the money I was supposed to, I found vaping, and then it didn't take me long to get into rebuildables after that. And finding that and just keeping busy with it was a lifesaver. It was absolutely a lifesaver, and it's cheap. Wicking cotton is cheap. You know, or your wicks and your wire are cheap. So you could go out and, you know, you could do builds for days on $20.
Right.
So.
All right. Yeah, I know mixing for me does that. If I've had a rough day or I've got a lot of stuff going on,
Yeah.
I sit down to mix. You concentrate on what you're doing, and you just forget about everything else for, even if it's 20 minutes. I mean, that's
Yeah.
20 minutes just kind of clear out your headspace a little bit.
Exactly, and then you can, and then you're looking at it with a different perspective when you come back to it. You're like, that's not nearly as big a deal as I thought it was. Like that's something that it took me a while. Like anything, like I would think all these little things were just the end of the world, and none of it was the end of the world. None of it was a very big deal in the long run. Might have been inconvenient at the time, but it wasn't the end of the world. And yeah, mixing does that for me. Bicycling does that for me. Like physical activity is really, really good for folks that have that problem, addiction or alcoholism. Getting out, getting physical, your mind will shut off. And you will just focus on what you're doing. And when you get done, you'll come back to whatever was bugging. And you're like, okay, not so bad.
Right. Is there anything that people should be doing between now and the time that the new head of the FDA is announced? Is there anything that people should be doing now?
I mean, they can reach out to their senators and say, we want Dr. Drew Pinsky as our head of the FDA, but that'll never happen. Right. They want someone that's worked with the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, right now there's the national flavor ban bill has been pushed forward. Well, it's not pushed forward. It's up for consideration. Last time I checked, I think it had like 2% chance of becoming a reality. So, I mean, you can reach out to your representatives and tell them vote no on this, even though the majority of them are probably going to vote no, or they won't even let it come up to the floor, because that's not the federal government's job. It's not the federal government's job to make that decision. It's the states. And most of them realize that if you try and take something from a state, the state governments are going to get mighty pissy about that. So I know there's a partial flavor ban for like convenience stores that's probably coming. That's probably going to be dropped here. And that one we have no choice about. We have no choice about that. Anybody? It's not a full flavor ban. They're not going to tell the vape shops to stop selling your liquid, anything like that. It's mostly convenience store stuff. That's Scott Gottlieb heading out the door, and that's going to be his final action. That's already on the president's desk, and that's happening. It's going to be tobacco, menthol and mint for Juul, and then there's going to be a couple others that are going to get special consideration, aka they gave some money away to those folks. We have no choice about that. 90% of the things that are going on at the federal level, we have no say in at all, other than to call our representatives and say, don't do this. And they're not going to listen to, 2 or 3 million vapors. That's not going to make a lick of difference to them.
Right.
Because majority of vapors aren't going to make a call anyway. So it won't make a lick of difference to them. They'll just stick with whatever their party line's going to do. You should always be more concerned about what's going on locally. That's something you can influence, your state level and your local level, city level. So always be checking those ballots, because you get sent the ballots. You get sent the ballots every time. And if you look for anything involving tobacco, anything suspicious around vaping, call your representative. They have hotlines that you can call and ask for clarification on what this is going to do. Call those folks and be like, hey, what's this going to do? If it's an anti-vaping measure and they weirded it funny, call your representative. Or usually that hotline will take the message right for the representative from there and deliver it. All you have to do is give them your address, and they'll deliver it to whoever. Like you can do it even if you're not a registered voter, you can still leave them messages. Although you should register to vote, everybody. You should exercise your choice, and every term you should be voting out anybody who was in office. Just vote them out. Just vote them out. Don't let any old blood stick around. That's my thoughts. But get involved locally. That's what you can do right now, because the things that are going on up on the high level, we have zero chance of influencing, unfortunately.
you know, on the staying informed about what's going on in your community too, that would be a good reason to join organizations like CASA.
CASA. Yeah, CASA. Here in Washington, we have the Pink Lung Brigade. If you're a vape shop owner, or you're involved in the vape industry at all, and you're not, and your company isn't a member of SFATA, shame on you. You should be a member of SFATA. They used to be a bad organization. They've got a really good crew of people in now, and they help. They help a lot. SFATA helps a lot now. VTA, the Vapor Technology Association, should be a member of that if you're part of the industry. But yeah, CASA will let you know what's going on in your local area. They do it pretty well. They do it pretty well. They miss some stuff, but usually they're all over it. But if there's a local group, that's who you really need to get in touch with. If there's someone down the street doing something, go get involved with them.
So what advice would you have for a brand new mixer? Like, I mean, because if this flavor ban goes through, there's going to be a lot of new people trying to learn how to mix. There's
going to be a lot of one-shotters. Start simple with one-shots. That's number one. Start simple with one-shots. Liquid Barn has a ton of one-shots from a lot of different mixers. They've got some of their own, and then they've got the basic bottles. The basic bottles, do I have one sitting over here somewhere? I do. Basic bottles. They look like that. And you just open them up, and you can pop this cap right off. Well, you can pop the cap right off, and then you just, on the back, it has the percentages of what you're doing right there.
Right.
And you just fill it up to where it's supposed to be, and then you just top it off with VG, and it's the easiest thing. And everything's available right there on Liquid Barn. They've got themselves set up pretty spectacularly if a flavor ban ever goes through. But I mean, like over in Europe, like one shots are a huge thing, and I think eventually it's going to catch on here that you can make a whole bunch of e-liquid for a whole lot less. So start with one shots, keep it simple. Never buy big bottles of anything when you're first starting out. Never, ever, ever buy a big bottle. I've still got a giant bottle of Red Bull, because Addy Tooney sent me a recipe that was really good. I bought a giant bottle of Red Bull because it was in it. And yeah, you see how much of it I've used.
Right.
And this is, I mean, it's still good. Yeah, the manufacture date was 12/3/14. It's still good. It didn't expire or anything like that. But I'm never going to use this much, ever.
Right.
One of the big flavors new vapors will always use is that Sugar Cookie by Capella. Sugar Cookie by Capella goes bad pretty quickly. Always buy small bottles of Sugar Cookie. I've made the mistake of buying big bottles, and then you get less than halfway through it, and the flavors completely just muted, and it's not what it's supposed to be. You're not getting what you're supposed to out of the concentrate. So when you're first starting out, buy the smallest bottle that's available. Even if you think you're going to make a ton of something, just start low. You can always buy a big bottle later if you really like it. Those are the two. Yeah, don't go crazy. Don't go crazy. Don't spend $300 your first time out. Spend $30, get enough to make, damn near a liter of e-liquid, and then, you may not like DIY. You may not like it at all. You might find it tedious. I know a lot of people find it tedious, but if you stick around with it and you get used to it, you'll get in. You'll dig it. But don't invest a bunch of money in something that you're not going to like.
Yeah, don't invest enough money that you have to like it.
Exactly. And then you're just constantly hate vaping.
Right.
Like, I mix this up and it's delicious, but I hate it. I hate it because I had to mix it, because I had all these flavors. I can't afford to buy my bottle of Jam Monster this month. Don't do that to yourself. Buy your Jam Monster if that's what you really want. Or you can mix 6% or like 8% of the real flavors, toast and jam, and then add like 6% sweetener to it. And then you've got Jam Monster anyway.
Right. That's something else that I think people new to mixing need to be sure to buy is sweetener.
Yeah,
because
you're going to need your sweetener when you first start.
yeah, well, they're used to the commercial juice that is usually really sweet, and now they're making something and it just doesn't taste the same to them.
Mm-hmm.
That sweetener kind of helps that out.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you should buy 2 sweeteners if you're first starting out. You should buy Cap Super Sweet. Cap Super Sweet is in so much stuff. And then you should either get Flavor West sweetener or e-cig Express sweetener, one of those 2. And those are just sucralose. And those ones the sucralose is actually probably the friendliest sweetener that you've got. Super sweet will gunk your coils like nobody's business. The sucralose takes a while to do it. But those are the 2 most common sweeteners that are used out there. Is the sucralose and the Cap Super Sweet. Cap Super Sweet's sucralose and a different sweetener, and then a couple of acids, if I remember correctly. So it can brighten stuff up, but man, does it destroy coils.
Right. Yeah, I pretty much swapped to the Flavor West now. I've got maybe 15 milliliters of the Cap left, and I don't think I'll buy any more.
Yeah, I mean, Super Sweet, if you're making somebody's recipe, it can do specific things for certain recipes. That's the reason Wayne uses it all the time, because it can help brighten fruits up. Seems to help strawberries quite a bit. So if you're looking to mix up something strawberry, which everybody's always doing at the start, Cap Super Sweet's certainly going to help that. But the just sucralose, it doesn't do all the same things, but it's not nearly as bad for your coils. And it's super cheap. Like where's my bottle? My bottle of e-cig Express sweetener. This was probably like $4 or $5 for 120 mils, so 4 ounces.
Right. All right. For anybody who, I don't know how they would know, but if somebody didn't know, where can people find you?
YouTube.com/FRESH03. I've been around forever. I've got tons of videos. I only have a couple live shows on my channel every week. I think there's 3 that are actually on my channel, but I'm live almost every day of the week. I've cut down here and there, but almost every day of the week I'm live on somebody's channel. And yeah, anybody that asks me, I'll probably pop up on your channel if you ask me. But Instagram, FRESH0133. That's the 2 places that I'm easiest to find. I'm in most of the DIY Facebook groups. You'll see me pop through, but I really despise Facebook. So Facebook is the least efficient way to ever try and get in touch with me. If you want to get in touch with me, either leave a comment on my videos or you can message me on Instagram, and I'll generally will see it pretty quick.
Right. And FRESH03 on all the flavors and ELR?
FRESH-A-Peas.
Fresh
If you're looking for me, I'm FRESH-A-Peas on ELR and all the flavors. It's FRESHEPIES. Freshy Pies, but it's FRESH-A-Peas.
All right. And you've got your Facebook group is FRESH-A-Peas too, isn't it?
The FRESH-A-Pea book.
Yeah.
I only check the FRESH-A-Pea book like 3 or 4 times a week. So right. It's not all that active of a group, unfortunately.
Right. All right. Well, again, Fresh, I appreciate you sitting down and talking, man.
No problem, man. No problem. And anybody, I know that somebody asked, I saw this question, so I will address it myself, Mike. FRESH03, where did the eye contact come from? Well, everybody, where eye contact came from was a guy who popped up who used to be on my channel. It was Hazy Vapors. I would always be like shaking my bottle like this and just talking to the camera. And eventually he's like, dude, you're creeping me out with the eye contact. And from there it grew, because if you tell me I'm creeping you out, I'm going to do it more. And I'm going to make it way, way, way worse. And from there, I passed the gift on to Brian from the Vapor Chronicles. And that's when it went to just the most obscene levels that we could think of. And it's been pretty obscene ever since. But that's where eye contact came from, everybody.
Good deal. All right. Anything else that you want to tell people?
Be beautiful to each other. Educate, advocate, be good for this community. I love you all. Thank you for letting me be a part of your DIY journey. It's an absolute pleasure to hang out with everybody every week. And if you're not sub to Mike, sub to Mike. He's an awesome dude, one of the best mixers and one of the best people we got in the community.